Hey friends! So I'm back, and this is, I think, like the fifth time I've tried to record this episode. It's not even a hard topic to talk about. It's just been hard getting myself situated and organized in a sense where I can come on, not need to stop a bunch of times, not yawn 1,000 times. So we're gonna try to do this again. I wanted to talk about deconstruction in a different light. So we've talked about, I actually don't know if we've talked about deconstruction, but we have talked about, and I think everyone knows someone who's deconstructed in the church, but I wanted to talk about deconstructing like yourself and your self-imposed identities. So I'm just going to jump right in to where all my thoughts are, and we'll figure this out together. A while back, like a long time ago actually, I heard a woman say that women are like Russian nesting dolls, which I was like, okay, that's kind of like a neat imagery. And she said, as we go on with our life, we add more to our life. But when we open it up, the biggest version, so like the biggest doll, houses all of the other ones. And that very small one that doesn't open anymore is who we are at our core. And we add on other people's opinions or ideas or needs. We add on work roles or home roles. We add on personality traits. We take on responsibilities. We add people to our lives, be it family, friends, kids, nieces and nephews. Like we add people in, and they add a layer. They shift things around for us. And so she talked about this idea that, like at the end of our life, we're the biggest version of ourselves. But at the beginning, if you go all the way back, there's this core. There's this little core of you, and each version of you still holds that core. And so that kind of shook me a little bit. And then just rolling that over in my head for a long time, I was able to see that that is super true. But for me, the things I added on weren't always healthy. And so having to take them and put them off of me and remove someone else's judgment or someone else's needs. Like I can't take care of everyone. Removing people pleasing from my main role, removing just certain aspects of trying to fit all the gender roles or the stereotypes or the things that I thought my husband wanted me to do. When we first got married, we had a lot of issues. I was only 20, and so I thought he wanted me to be like his mother and to behave like her, so I took on her personality to the best of my ability, to a point that I was comfortable. But I was completely uncomfortable being her because I'm not her and she's not me, and so we're very different. But I tried to emulate that because that's what he grew up with, and then we just had a bunch of issues. And I've talked about it, I had an affair with someone that we grew up with, and they were friends, and it was just a really bad situation. And so when that happened, my husband and I started spending more time together to rebuild the relationship, intentional time together. I would go to the grocery store and he would come with me, which wasn't something that we had been doing up until the affair. It was I'll go to the grocery store while you're working, and or you stay home and I'll go to the grocery store and you watch the baby kind of situation. So I remember one time we were walking, and he was like, hey, can I, I'm going to go grab the chips because they're just on the next aisle, and you need to look for something here. I was like, great. And he, I can't remember if he walked away or if he asked right away, but he was like, hey, can we actually get Cool Ranch Doritos? And I was like, yeah, those are my favorite. Actually, just I always bought the nacho cheese because I thought those were your favorite. And he told me I always bought the nacho cheese when I come to the store because I thought they were your favorite. And we'd been married for I don't know, almost 5 years. probably like 3 years at this point, and we didn't even have that basic information about each other, because I had put on a different version of myself, and it was what it was. Sorry, I'm shifting. And so we were able to figure that out, that we both liked the same chip, which isn't that big of a deal, and we actually don't even eat those chips anymore, but they're our favorite kind of Doritos, and so we were able to talk through that, and I was, saw in that moment, like, I don't even know who I am. Like, I've put on everyone else's identity for me into my person, and I don't know what I like, what I don't like, what I like doing, what I don't want to do with my time, what I do want, like, just this whole finding yourself. And I equated it to being a mom, but I don't think that that's actually something that only comes with motherhood. I think that's something that comes with just being, maybe it's being a people pleaser, maybe it's being weak in yourself, like, not saying that, I was weak, but I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying maybe it's something that comes with not having a solid foundation on your own personhood, not having autonomy, being codependent in unhealthy ways. I don't know why we always have to feel like we have to find ourselves. I know people who've never had to find themselves and have always been envious of those people, but I think they have other issues that they struggle with. I don't think I know. The people that I know do, at least. And so I had this, like, revelation that I didn't know who I was. And so I equated it to being a mom. I can look back now and say, like, that's actually not, motherhood didn't do that to me. I did that to me because I didn't know who I was. All the way through high school, I was like a chameleon. I would, float in and out of crowds. People who were popular or whatever will see me now and be like, oh my gosh, we went to school together. Like, we never hung out though. And I'm like, yeah, because I hung out with no one and everyone. And the funny thing is, like, people who were popular are just like basic people at this point. So note to anyone who's in high school and there's like popular kids that you can't hang out with, they're gonna just be like basic people in a couple years. And no one's gonna care who they were in high school. So also, if you're a popular kid in high school, sorry to tell you that, no one's gonna care who you were. Like, when you go get a job, no one's gonna care that you were so-and-so at whatever high school you're at. Which is like a nice thing to know, but also in the thick of it, you think that, like, you can't get your brain wrapped around that. So, and I'll see people who were like, I was friends with, and it's just like a weird chameleon thing that I lived. So it's like, with one group of people, I was a certain way, and with another group of people, I was another way. And there was this, like, perpetual, like, my core was like the same, but it was super small, and it like transitioned. It was like very translucent, I guess would be the way to say that. So, I, like, it was a lot of time in high school that I didn't know who I was, and then I got married, and I definitely didn't know who I was, and then I had a kid, and that was like world shaking, like changing. I got postpartum depression super bad. I think I've talked about, I actually know I've talked about that. You can go back and listen to that story if you want to. And then I had an affair, which also, like, world shaking, all the things. It was such a mess. And then I was in an unhealthy church for a while. My husband and I both were in an unhealthy church, and the church is, like, doing so well. They're in a much better place. And that's like a maybe another day. We'll talk about that. But for now, just unhealthy leadership kind of led me to believe that I was really low in value. Honestly, that's where it boils down to. And so I had to work really hard to feel important, or even to feel seen, not important, just like to feel like someone who had any worth. Like, when I say it was bad leadership, I mean, like, bad with all caps leadership. So there was some, like, major pains that came from that. Always feeling like I didn't have a value or worth unless I was doing something or producing something. And so it's this idea that like I'm finding myself, but I'm finding out that like who I am and like my worth and my value and all these things has been really interesting, because coming from a place where like the leadership is so important to you, and for them to kind of dismiss you as a person, is hard. But we got like out of there, and we went ahead and moved. And so we moved to where we're at now, which is outside of DFW, in a, I'm not going to say it's a small town, like we're one of the fastest growing counties in the country. So we're not a small town anymore, but we moved to a much smaller town, and a much smaller church. And so the difference in like culture that we're seeing inside of our church has helped. And we've only been here 2 years, but I can tell you like within the past 2 years, I've seen myself and my kids come alive. And that's what healthy leadership does. But we are not talking about healthy leadership or other churches. We're talking about finding myself. Oh, that was probably really loud. I'm so sorry. Finding myself. And so we are gonna kind of go back to that. The only the reason I even brought up that other leadership in the church is it's a part of my story, and it's a part of why I struggle with certain things. But it, like, I can't have that be the blame, because then I'll be able to find anything, and like I'll always have a victim status. And that's not a place I want to live. I don't want to live in victimhood. I want to be able to walk confidently in my identity of who I am. And so there are, I guess, like in my little person of Russian nesting dolls, there's, more than like 3 or 4 versions. There's versions that have like partial like fractures and brokenness, and there's like a really dark version that's in there, and it's this like neat way of like when I unravel the whole thing, it's really messy, but I can see how it's all connected. And so I wanted to just kind of bring up this idea of deconstructing yourself and taking off all of the identities and the victimhoods that people or you have placed on yourself, and how freeing that can be. So in our previous church, and I will say this, I love connecting people. Like I love getting people into the right group, not like friend group, but like the right place to like use their abilities. I love seeing that. I'm actively working on a project right now where I do that for homeschool families, where we're at, and it is like what gets me up some mornings, because I get to go have coffee with a teacher who, has all these certifications, and I'm so excited to talk to her and like hear what they can do, and I'm like just running through my list of friends and families that I know that I'm like, oh my gosh, their kid would benefit, like what's the rate, what is this? And it's like a gift and I love using it. In our previous church, that was seen as like, oh, you're kind of like a busybody, like you always have to be doing something, and it was a very negative spin on that gift, and so I felt like it was bad. And so when we stepped into serving at our current church, I was like, I would get excited about stuff, and they would get excited with me, and like, no, that's great. I'm like, wait, I thought that was like a bad thing, like it's just like a character flaw of mine. And there was a lot of like, no, that's not a character flaw, it's a gift. And like, use it. You're gifted with it. So I had to take off this like character flaw that I had been carrying around, like, oh, I'm like nosy, or like I'm trying to always connect people, or matchmake is like a word that got thrown around, like you're a matchmaker, but you shouldn't do that. Those kinds of ideas. So I had to like take off this identity of being like, of it being a character flaw. And I've had to be okay with like, no, this is like something I'm good at. And I've had to be able to say like, I'm good at that. Like, and not in a arrogant way, but that's just a gifting I have. There's other people who have the gifting of like shutting their mouths, and I don't. So that is something that I'm like working on, being like healthy, but not in a diet culty way, but just having like healthy like eating habits with my kids around. There's a lot of times where I'll say like, if I'm not willing to feed that to my kid, why would I eat it for myself? So there's a lot of food that I share with my kids, even though I don't want to. Because if they can't have it, I shouldn't be eating it. But taking it to where it's not like mommy has to be strong and skinny because, you know, she owes the world an attractive body. But I need to be strong and healthy for my kids so that I can continue to take adventures with them and I can enjoy my life with my husband when they move out. And I know that my kids have learned good habits. And they will learn bad habits too, because I have bad habits and they're with me all the time. So they'll learn bad habits. And I just have to be able to work on my bad habits actively and openly and not put them on my kids. And not, you know, taint their little people dolls where it's like, oh, whoops, that was the time frame where I like micromanaged everything you did and told you were such a bad person for everything you ever did. Like we just had a conversation the other day and I was really hard on our son and I was like, I suck, dude, like I'm so sorry. And he's like, what are you talking about? But he didn't hear it the way that I would have heard it. And that's because we're different people. My daughter would have heard it the way I heard it. The way I would have heard it because she and I are similar. So I have to be cautious to not put these character flaws on them. And I think that has given me the freedom to remove character flaws because I'm parenting my younger self now, like the version, like, I don't know, does that make sense? That's like a weird thing to say, I'm parenting my younger self. But like when I think about parenting, I'm parenting with my younger self in mind. Like, what does adult Leslie know that she wishes, you know, her parents would have done? Not because my parents didn't do right, but my parents did what they knew to do. And now we know not to do certain things. So just kind of that thing. And also going back to the victimhood, like taking that, like everything's a trauma thing out of my bag of like things that I reach for. There's a lot of things online right now that are saying like, if you can't remember your childhood, it's because it's so full of trauma you had to black it out. I don't agree. I can't even tell you what I ate for breakfast on Saturday and it's only Tuesday. Like I cannot tell you what I had at all to eat on Saturday. I don't even think I could tell you what I did on Saturday unless I looked at my calendar or the bank statement in case we went somewhere. So the idea that we have to remember our whole childhood is kind of crazy. Like, yes, there's trauma. Like, yes, there's trauma in my past. Yes, there's trauma in your past. Yes, there's things that you have probably blocked out and closed off and you are not wanting to go over it. But I do not think you can't remember your entire childhood because of trauma. I think it is because we're not supposed to remember our entire childhood. I think we're supposed to have core memories that evoke emotions, and sometimes those are trauma and sometimes those are good. And we have to work through the ones that are trauma and triggering, and we need to work through them, remove the victimhood, remove that, strengthen ourselves, give our core some more like light, or, and by core I mean like the little core version of ourselves, like stop squishing that one down like it's not important, because that's our most important one. That's our worth. That's who we were created to be. And so you need to work through the pain and the trauma and then take the core memories that are good and celebrate them. So that is kind of that spiel on the whole, I can't remember my childhood because I have trauma in it. I literally can't remember anything from this weekend. I went to church on Sunday. I know that for a fact. Like that's it. That's what I can tell you from this weekend. It would probably take me like 5-10 minutes to remember what happened. And that was 4 days ago. So, the only reason I even think that we should work through childhood trauma is so that we can free ourselves from it and not have triggers that hold up in our bodies and hurt us and hurt our mind and take up space. There are lots of things that I've worked through just so that I am not burdened by somebody else and their mistakes and their behaviors. There are things that I am currently working through that people still do to this day that drive me nuts, and they upset me and they unravel me, and I have to work through so that I don't have a gross embittered hatred towards people, because it comes very easily, because people pleasers can be people haters because we're trying to make everyone happy, and when you can't, you're like, well, screw you, dude, like, I tried. It's a very weird thing. So I got off on a tangent, and I don't know where I was when I started it, so I'm very sorry. But I'm not sorry for anything that I said, because I had a friend a while back say that triggers are supposed to show us what we haven't healed. And I wholeheartedly think that that is probably some of the wisest stuff I've ever heard. When something triggers you, it's probably because it's being held inside of your body and it unravels you. There's like, my kids smacking in my ear triggers me, but it's because it's annoying and it's rude. But there's things that, like, I'll be honest, because I don't think he'll ever listen to this. There's things that my brother does that I'm like, dude, that is so unraveling to me. Like, and I will go home and I will have to process it for days. And then I'll have to remember, like, I don't care that much. Like, I cannot care that much that that's what he's doing with his, like, that's what he's still doing. Because it's stuff from, like, when we were kids that he would do that would bother me, and then it still bothers me because I'm like, we're 30 plus years old. So I think that it's important to work through triggers. I think it's important to give yourself grace to be who you currently are, but be working toward who you were designed to be and created to be. And for me, like, I was created to serve. Like, in my beliefs, like, I was created to serve God. Like, that is what I believe. Not in a servant way, but in a way that brings, like, people to him, brings knowledge about him to people. And so, because I believe that, like, he's awesome, he's fantastic. Like, I couldn't do what I do if I didn't have the faith that I have. Like, for a long time, it was blind faith. Like, I was just like, yes, no, I believe in God. Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't understand why. And then as I got older, it was just because I couldn't be hopeless. Like, I couldn't not believe in God, because at least if I believed in God, going through all the things I went through, loss and rape and depression and suicidal thoughts and anxiety and postpartum depression and an affair, like, if I had gone through that, because it was a very short window of time, like, that was 4 years that all that stuff happened to me. 5. My son was born when I was 21. If I didn't have faith in God, I would have been the most hopeless person in the world. I would have been so depressed. And so, like, I needed it at that point to say, like, there has to be a reason that I'm going through this. And now I can look back and see, like, okay, there is. And, like, it's not always great to say, like, oh, I've been through that, but it's always great to be able to say, I've been there. Like, I know what you're feeling. Like, I do. And to be able to look someone in the eyes and tell them, like, I promise you that this gets better. Not right away. And sometimes it's not better at all. Like, sometimes there are days where you're, like, back in square one, and you're like, why am I at square one again? I've worked hard. But it gets better. And each time we work to disengage the triggers and we work to get past the pain, we give our core self more, like, freedom to be part of who we are. And so we stop, I don't really want to say, like, shutting them down, but, like, we stop shutting them down. We start allowing ourselves to be who we were created to be and designed to be. So I really loved that Russian nesting doll thing. It's always sat with me. I've thought a couple times about getting it as a tattoo, but then I'm like, oh, like, it's such a wordy thing to tell people. That sounds bad for like a reason to not get it as a tattoo. Also, I haven't found one that I'm like, that's the one I want. But at some point, maybe I will. But I think the one I would want is the very, very small one, to remind you or remind me that my core, the person I was designed to be, the center of it, is worth showing and not something to be hidden down in 5 or 6 different layers of people pleasing versions of yourself. So I am in the process of reading a couple books that I'm going to want to share with you guys. I think I told, it may not be on YouTube. My goal with this podcast is transitioning. It's going to get kind of like chaotic for a little bit until I get playlists and things set up. But I get to serve in a ministry called Soul Care at our church in DFW. And it's this super wonderful ministry of like finding like your relationship with the Lord and like your value in who you are and who He designed you to be. And it's always about like your own person. And it's just been really, really incredible to be a part of. And so I've talked to a couple people, and there's not a ton of these resources out there. I'm actually starting, I'm not starting it. I get to facilitate this class in October at our church, at our campus, because we are a multi-site. And so I get to facilitate this class called Overcoming Fear and Anxiety. And it's I want to say 8-week. I'm really sorry. And I'll go through that on here. Like I will come on here and have discussion about what I read and what we talked, not what I talked about with the group, because that's an invasion of privacy, but what, it made me think of, or, my notes on the book. And so that's kind of my goal right now, is to go through books and talk to you guys about them and maybe talk to the authors if I can get there. I think that it would be incredible to be able to kind of have like a book club online and have a way to discuss really deep topics like people pleasing. Look at this book. That book, like, and why do I care? That line right there sticks out to me all the time. But What Do You Think of Me and Why Do I Care is one of the books I'm reading by Edward Walsh. He also wrote When People Are Big and God Is Small. He actually wrote this book, What Do You Think of Me and Why Do I Care, out of When People Are Big and God Is Small, because he got so much like information that he wrote this book towards younger people pleasers. And so I'm kind of reading this for myself, for my younger self, to like coach her, I guess, because I still have those thoughts that I had when I was a kid. They don't just go away because I'm in my 30s. They just make me feel dumb and immature for having them. So I'm reading this one, and then I'm also reading When People Are Big and God Is Small. I always get that backwards. And so I really would like to talk to him. So Edward, if you're randomly watching this small YouTube channel, send me a message. But I wanted to kind of give you guys a little quote from this book, because I think it's kind of pertinent to what we were just talking about. So let me find it really quick. It's just so good. There's a whole page that I just highlighted, like the entire thing. It's crazy. So we were talking about triggers, not twiggos. We were talking about triggers, and we were talking about, we've talked about people pleasing. We've talked about like the things that other people put on us. And so I'm going to give you guys this quote to kind of give you a little, like, not taste, but like a preview of what this book has in it and why I want to go through it on the channel. Okay, here we go. he's talking about peer pressure, codependency, shame, low self-esteem. These are some of the words used to identify how you can be controlled by the perceived opinions of others. These are also like identities that we put on ourselves, and we diminish our own worth and our core, like we've talked about. You can even use the phrase fear of other people. So, like, I have fear of other people. But that sounds ridiculous to say, like, oh, I'm afraid of other people. It's like, I'm not actually afraid of you, like, unless you're going to fight me, but I'm afraid of what you think of me. Like, do you think I'm annoying? Do you think my voice is weird? Do you think I talk too much? What do you think? That is my fear of other people. When you fear something, you are controlled by it. If you fear people, you are controlled by people. It's as if the opinion of other people are a threat to you. You are always looking for ways to ward off their life-threatening rejection. And I think that is why we have so many versions of ourselves. Like that quote right there. I think a way we ward off rejection is to create a version that is pleasing to the people we're around. And it is not doing us any justice. So, to wrap all this up with like a pretty little bow, even though it looks like a kindergartner wrapped it because it's messy and you're probably like, wait, I don't even know what she talked about. Like, we as people tend to camouflage to put out an image that other people like so that they like us. But in doing that, one, we're doing a disservice to ourselves because we're not being who we were created to be. We're not using gifts that we were given. We're not using strengths that we have. And we're trying to cram ourselves into a box that makes someone else uncomfortable. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, we are not actually letting them know who we are. We're letting them know a version of us. And maybe just a tiny bit of it is like who we are, but the rest of it is just picked up on so that they will like us. And so that is not a good friendship for them either. One, it's not good for you because you're having to be someone else. And it's not good for them because the person they think they are knowing and getting to know and spending time with and growing in this relationship with is lying. Like compulsively lying to keep up an image, to be this, like, I used to pretend like I liked Starbucks. Like I used to be like, oh, I love Starbucks. Like, oh my gosh, Starbucks and Target, I love it. And for a while, I probably did. But I like literally don't understand why people like going to Target and Starbucks. I always spend money there. I always have a stomach ache. And I usually end up with something that I didn't need. Or I feel bad about my life. Like literally. Like bad. Like my house doesn't even look nice anymore because I went to Target and spent 2 hours just walking around looking at stuff, making me feel bad. But I spent years like sharing the Target, like went on vacation to Target for 2 hours a day, like all those things. And they're fine and they're funny and I'm not like hating on anyone who shares that. I'm just saying, like I was a person who was saying that and internally being like, I don't get it. Like, I don't get the joke. I don't get the reference. I don't understand why people like it. And so I was not being a good friend to those people. And so they were getting a fake person as a friend, and I was getting probably honestly a fake person as a friend too. But I wasn't getting a friend. A version of me was getting a friend. So that's number 2. Like, 1, you're doing a disservice to yourself. 2, you're doing a disservice to the person that you're trying to build this relationship with. 3, like, you lose yourself. Eventually you lose yourself in all this, and then you have to find yourself, and you're like, I don't even know what kind of chips I like. I don't even know what kind of Coke I like, or if I even like soda. Do I like soda or do I like sparkling water? I don't know. But do I like both? Does it depend on my mood? I used to have people ask me all the time, what's your favorite candy? I'm like, Like, what do you mean you don't even know your favorite candy? I'm like, no, I don't know, I guess not. And it would freak me out and like trigger me, like, I don't know myself. Like, oh gosh, I don't even know my favorite candy. And one day, my son at this point, he was little, like 8, 9, I don't know. And he asked me, and I told him it was Swedish fish at the time. I can't eat Swedish fish anymore because they put a sweetener in it that makes me sick. And so I told him, when he told my dad, and then my dad bought me some. And I was like, oh, that's nice, thanks. And my dad was like, isn't that your favorite candy? And I was like, honestly, it kind of depends on the day. Like, that doesn't sound good today. Like, I love them and thank you for the act of like getting them and putting that information in your head. Like, I really do appreciate that. But I actually don't have a favorite candy. Like, it depends on like the moon cycle or something. I don't freaking know what my candy preference is. I was like eating Snickers every time I went to the grocery store. I was buying a Snickers for like 2 months, and I got one the other day, and I was like, this is not what I want at all. This is not even good. So I got Twix, and I'm like, nope, that's not it either. So it just depends on, like, I don't know what it depends on, but it depends on something, and I have to own that. I have to say, like, I don't know what my favorite candy is, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just don't know. So that was kind of a rabbit hole about that. But I think the reason I even brought that up is because it's hard to be able to just say, like, no, I don't know. I actually don't know that. Or I actually don't have a favorite candy. Just kind of depends on like what I've eaten for that day. And sometimes that's more of an, like, sometimes that's what people are looking for. Like, oh, I'm not a weirdo. I don't have a favorite candy. You know, like, so if I wanted to surprise my friend, who I know also doesn't have a favorite candy, I'd be like, hey, what kind of candy do you want me today? Because I'm going to the store before I come over and we're going to hang out and I'm going to bring you candy. What do you want? And sometimes that like creates an even better bond to just be truthful, even if it's weird. So that is it. I think those are all the thoughts I had. I feel so much better. It was real rabbit hole-y though, so I'm very sorry if you were trying to like follow along in a very methodical way, because this is not the podcast for you if you're looking for methodical, succinct, note-taking content. I'm not her. I'm not that guy, buddy. So, I would be super excited to hear what is like one thing that you've been able to work through. Like, maybe not a trigger, because I think sometimes that can get touchy, but like something that you've like worked through in like a character flaw that you actually have been like, have either been told or have realized is a gift or a strength that you have. So mine would be like, I thought I was a busybody because of previous leadership and some words that have been said to me by other people inside of my life. And so being able to be like, actually, that's not the case. Like, I'm not a busybody. I'm just super good at connecting with people and trying to network, because I love it. And I can literally just think of 3 people that I know that would probably want your business card if you had one, or you wanted me to tell people about your business, or not like your business, like your nosy business, but like your job business. So that's something that I'm like working on, because I've had people be like, wow, you're like up in everyone's business. I'm like, I'm not. Well, I've had one person say that, and that person's rude anyway, so I shouldn't really care what they say. But I do, because it's a trigger for me. But being able to be like, no, not really. Like, they're just super talented at what they're doing, and I actually have someone who's looking for that, so I was going to try to connect them. And that's all that was. But I want to be able to tell my other friend, hey, this person does X, Y, and Z, because I don't want to waste my friend's time or my new friend's time. So that is kind of something I've like been able to throw up, and to just speak confidently, like, no, I'm actually like, I'm doing a good thing, and this is a gift that I have, and not in an arrogant way, but a way of like, no, this is something I'm good at. Like, I'm not good at football. I couldn't coach football. I couldn't even referee football. Like, I don't even know anything about it. And I went to probably every game my brother ever played in, with the exception of like 10 from like 3rd grade until he graduated high school. Like, I should be a football fanatic. I hate the sport. Can't stand it. Waste of time. Don't want to watch it. Have zero desire to watch that game. But like, I should know a lot about it, but I don't. Despite like how much time I've spent at a football field, I know very little. And I can say like, nope, not good at that. Nope. Cooking? No. You don't want me to cook for you. You don't want me to teach a cooking class. It's going to be bad. I throw away the box the minute I dump the contents out. And then I dig in the trash multiple times. Cleaning? Nah. Nope. Sometimes, yeah, I'll clean. But like, usually it's when I'm like having like a pre-panic attack. I'm like, all right, we got to clean because something's wrong. Organizing, pretty organized. Decorating, pretty good at it, but I'm not like people don't like what I like. People like Hobby Lobby, and I think Hobby Lobby is like Target and Starbucks. Like, there's like a trifecta of things I don't get, and that is the three of them. A trifecta is three. That's the three of them. I don't get it. Like, that sounds like such a boring afternoon for me. Like, take me to Goodwill and like some weird coffee shop, and I will be the happiest person in the whole wide world. Or garage sailing, let's do it. Like, let's go look at other people's trash. But like, if you wanted to go to Target and hang out, I would probably get a soft pretzel and end up buying like some stuff from a dollar spot because I don't want to spend time with you. But I don't get the hype of those things, and that's okay because I don't have to be friends with other people. I can just say like, do you want to go get pizza after you're done doing that? Like, or do you want to go to Whataburger or something? So that was my rabbit hole about like, I obviously got triggered thinking about the person who has said unkind things to me about how I'm like nosy and need to stay out of people's business. So I'm gonna wrap it up. I think that it is important for you to slowly work through things at your own pace. I definitely do not think that you should implode your life trying to figure out who you are and trying to like find your core, because if you implode things, you will probably spend a long time sifting through stuff that you have put on or that you've brought on or that you have enjoyed. Like, you're going to sift through and be like, I don't like that. Like, oh, I don't like that. When really you do, but you implode everything and you're in a state of chaos and disorganization and maybe bitterness because you're so frustrated with how things are, that it's going to get messy and it's not going to be good work. It's going to be hard work. And I think deconstructing yourself is hard work that is worth doing. And it is good work. So take one, like just little things like, hey, do I actually really like that candy? Or are there other candies that I like? Like, do I have to have a favorite candy or favorite movie? I don't have favorite movies. I have like favorite shows, but there's 4 of them. And I will watch them on repeat all of the time. So I've had to quit watching them because I have to branch out and it's like seek new genres and things. And like, that is something I know about myself. I love comedy. Like, I like stupid comedy. Yes, please. I do not want to have to think to find a joke funny. So I like dumb comedy that people will watch and be like, wow, this is so dumb. Why are you watching this? And I'm like, that's why I'm watching it. Because it's so dumb. It's so removed from reality, or it's so much like reality that it's comical and you can see like, wow, that is ridiculous. So just one thing, like just work on one thing this week, like something that you're like, I actually don't think that I blah. Work on that one. Don't blow your life up. Don't implode. Don't freak out and be like, I don't know myself. Just work. And actually, even better yet, work on finding what you do like instead of work on finding what you don't like. Because I think that can kind of be like a mood thing too. So work towards finding something that you do like, and we'll chat again soon. I think maybe next time I will have some more of this read. I'm a very slow reader and my eyes get very tired when I read, and so I kind of have to reread it like 27 times. So we will, maybe we'll talk about that next time, or something else that popped into my head that I want to talk about. So I love y'all. Stay awkward. Thank you for listening to me talk for almost 45 minutes about Russian nesting dolls. Basically, that's what we talked about. Take care of yourself. Take care of your core, like maybe even your physical core, but like take care of who you were created to be. Protect them and love them and find them, and know that you are super valuable and you're super important, and maybe like and subscribe. I don't know. Do whatever you want to do. I love you. Goodbye.